Yeah.
Okay, just one thing I want to mention. I don't know if anyone else is getting this vibe, but things keep coming up on my screen saying that there's a thunderstorm warning. And so if I disappear, that's where I went. I'm off to the thunderstorm. So this process, the way I understand it, is that with these three folks that have come forward, the board members will be electing the replacement treasurer. So do you want to have these three folks present themselves? And I'm asking the board.
Woman, are you
No.
electing the treasurer? No, I don't think so.
Do they feel comfortable with that, or do they want you to say their information on their behalf?
I can read them if they'd like, but if
I'll
somebody
say.
wants to do it, Zach, you'd like to? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, if no one else wants to start, that is.
Have at it.
So, my experience, for why I want to be
What?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you
is
the Lowe's
I did
card.
tax prep for a few
And we're
years.
Don't talk.
Thank you, Nora.
And I worked on some business returns and did some bookkeeping as well. And now I work in property management. So, got some experience with this.
Zach, can you speak up a little bit, please?
Sorry.
Yes.
I've done bookkeeping stuff in the past, and I'm also in property management right now. So I got some experience working with budgets, transitions, stuff like that. I even got like 5 budgets I got to do for like next week for my job. So budget season into it. So want to take my skills and put those to the use of the board.
Okay, thank you, Zach. We also have a woman, a resident that came forward. Her name is Kathy Cummings, and is she present here today? If she's raising her hand, I can't see her. Just
I don't
taking.
see any hand raised.
Yeah, okay. All right, I will read hers then. And I've copied these emails into our Google Drive if anybody has interest in looking at these. And to find the right, here we are. Okay, get the right one. So this came by way of Nora. This woman said she sent it on Tuesday the 18th in the afternoon. She said, "Good afternoon. My name is Kathy Cummings. I live at 38 Elwell Lane. I have been retired for the past couple of years and would have the time to put in for this position. Prior to retiring, I was an accounting manager at a large real estate company, a mortgage company, and when those companies were sold, I went on to be the bookkeeper for a large construction company which built new homes. I have experience with QuickBooks and Excel and often ran budgeting spreadsheets for the company. If you would like more information, please let me know." And then she provided her contact information. So that is Kathy Cummings. And we also have one other woman who came forth at our last in-person meeting. And let me just make sure I have her name correct here. It's Celeste, and her last name is Yakowanis. So is Celeste here and present in the meeting? Okay, so I'm not seeing. I will read hers as well. I'm gonna, if nobody minds, I'm gonna whittle through the personal information and just focus on the professional items that she has here. She says, "I have been on various boards. I should also say," she said, "I also believe that giving back to the community I live in is very important. I have been on various boards over the years, starting with the Lewiston, Auburn, now LA Metro Chamber of Commerce, Lewiston Auburn Boys and Girls Club, Lewiston Auburn Rotary, she's still active on that, and past president. CMCC College Foundation Board, Tri-County Mental Health, and others. I feel my strength is to establish connections between the organization I am with and other organizations usually involved with fundraising and capital campaign projects. I especially would love to be on the Blueberry Cooperative Board because for the past 40 years, I've been a real estate title abstractor. I am familiar with reading contracts, deeds, leases, etc., and can use that experience in relation to the proposed purchase of Lynn Haven Park. Of course, I also have a personal stake in the sale, as do over X number of people here. So, he did go on to say, what is not in my wheelhouse is the background to be a treasurer. I was a treasurer for a time in Androscoggin, the Gattahawk, I think it is that county extension board. Take care of your deposits from new members of the co-op, but analyzing financial reports and balancing books is not my skill set. So as Nora has said, we do have the ability, if someone has a good basic common sense and some background, we're willing to train. So I just want to make that clear to folks before we vote. So does someone want to make a motion to vote for?
I would like to make a motion, based on all the information you've provided. I would like to make a motion that we elect Kathy Cummings as treasurer.
Does someone want to second that, or do we want to have some?
I don't know if we're ready. Are we ready to make the vote right now? I didn't know if we should talk about it. Those sound like three qualified individuals to me. And who's here? Who's on board? Zach's
Just me.
online.
Yeah, the other two. I don't think
Take it to executive session.
Well, we have to decide because we need the treasurer on board, so to speak.
Well, Kathy's retired and she could probably put the time in.
That's what I was thinking.
Well, I think it's up to I guess, why don't I just say this? Why don't we raise our hands for the three different people and see what we get for votes? And then we can make a motion on what the majority is voting for. Does that seem realistic to folks?
Could we have more discussion
Yeah.
before voting? And I'd like to hear
Yeah.
from Zach if we're taking time into consideration, just what you feel like your capacity is in terms of time to serve in this role.
I feel like I don't really do too much on the weekends, so I can do stuff then. And sometimes in the afternoons.
I can't hear you.
I can't either.
Sorry. Weekends are good with me, and I got some more time too, like most days in the afternoon to work on this stuff.
Are you available for the meetings? Right now, we're meeting, it appears to be every Thursday until we get this wrapped up. I don't know how often we'll be having meetings, but could you be doing meetings as needed? I don't know if we'll be on a weekly basis or a monthly basis after the sale's been completed.
Yeah, basically, yeah. If it's just like every week, yeah, like this time, good to go. If we got to do another one too, I'm fine with that. And if everyone's
You've
available,
attended every meeting, right? So far.
yeah, I've been at every one.
I think it's important. Anyone who's actually showing up every week, I think that counts for something.
I do as well. I can say that Celeste did say that she was going to be out of town tonight.
Right.
I don't have anything against any of those people. Like I said, I think all three sound qualified to a certain degree. Not that this is that giant of financial corporation that they'd have to manage.
Right.
But,
I think they all appear to be very qualified also, but like Bonnie said, the reason I chose Kathy Cummings for my choice was that she's retired and has the time to put in.
It's not like I don't though.
She's also an accounting
Hmm.
manager.
Bernie, did you have something? Did you have your hand up? Or you?
Yeah, I was wondering if Kathy and Celeste, if anybody discussed whether it might be appropriate for them to not be here tonight while we're voting, or
Well, they're
No.
not.
you know, is there a reason that, you know, did Kathy give a reason why she's not here?
No,
Okay.
not that I'm aware of.
She's on our mailing list so far.
Yeah, let me just double check.
Chair, do you know where the rest of the onion is?
Sarah?
I'd like to interject just for a second. I responded to Kathy's email. I said, we appreciate your letter of interest, Kathy. The board will be voting on filling this position on Thursday evening, early on in the meeting under old business. If you're able to attend, you're welcome to present yourself. Otherwise, I am happy to read this letter to the board. Thank you. So I guess I would like to say Melissa wants to put forth her vote for Kathy, and Zach is representing himself, and there are other folks that are in agreement with Zach. And, you know, the other part of this is that if Zach is elected for this position, it opens up another director at large, at which point either of these two people could be moved into that position.
And
That was my
also,
thought.
I
If,
agree with that.
if they're willing to accept the at-large position.
Right. But you know, we've also discussed, and Nora brought up at the start of all this, that we've got one board while we're doing the sale, and then as soon as the sale's made, we start all over again and get a new board.
That's true.
So I think that's good to keep in mind, and to keep in mind any names, even if they're not selected for the next time around. Because some people may say, you know, I did my bit and I've had enough, and hey, we need somebody else who knows what they're doing. So I would, whoever doesn't get it, I think we should hang on to their names and addresses.
I
Good
agree.
point, Chris. Chris Wilkins, you have your hand up.
I don't think there's anything also precluding us from having like a committee, you know, if people want to help
I was
with carrying
thinking-
part of the treasury load.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be one person. It's just, you know, one person has to organize it.
I was thinking the same thing for all of the seller receivable data to like break it out. Oops. Thinking that was a good idea.
How big a load is being treasurer? Quite frankly, I don't really know. Somebody'd have to fill me in.
Well, right now we're simply counting the number of members and the number of dollars, but things will certainly ramp up once we get going. We do need to look at the package that's been provided and see if we have any questions around any of the reports. So there's a bit of work to do. I don't see it as being something that couldn't be handled. I don't think it's a 40-hour-a-week job. I think it's, you know, something that someone could put some time into, and certainly other members of the board are welcome to participate in that. So I guess for the sake of time, why don't we just raise hands for, it seems as though there's some push for Zach. Does anyone know Celeste and have any interest in putting in a vote for her at this point?
I don't know any of these people except Zach, and that's just vaguely from the, you know, the other people I know nothing about.
Celeste was at the last meeting and expressed her interest. That was the first time I've seen her.
Right.
Yeah.
At the meeting at the school, the in-person meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
She gave her information to both Nora and myself.
We need to vote.
Celeste just moved into the neighborhood.
Right. Okay, so why don't we give a show of hands for Zach?
I think I'm good with Zach.
I vote for Zach.
2, 3, 4. 6.
Me too.
I don't think you can vote for yourself, Zach, but
No.
Go for it, Zach.
I don't
Put
think
up
that's
both
cool.
hands, Zach.
I like your
Let's
spirit,
gauche at
Zach. You go
least.
for it.
I'm counting 9 votes. Can somebody check? The Zoom squares were moving around a bit, so I've locked him in.
5, 6.
That should be unanimous, not counting Zach.
9?
Yes.
And can I like make a motion to extend the at-large position to those that are interested? Because that means we would have 2 now, right?
No, we just have Zach's.
Just the one.
Yeah. So we need to ask those folks first, Chris, but good point. I believe that we would do that next meeting. If they were here and they said yes to it, then we'd be in a different position.
What kind of food do you want?
For the sake of the notes, can I ask again who made the motion to elect Zach and who seconded it? I didn't see on Zoom.
We didn't do that.
I didn't do it. I don't think you need a
We
motion
just-
there.
We just put up a show of hands, but I guess we should have someone.
All right. I'll make a motion that we elect Zach as our new treasurer.
Thanks, Melissa.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
No.
Aye.
So just a gentle reminder to folks that are here on the Zoom meeting, when we're doing these votes, these particular votes are board members only, just so that you know.
Are there any objections? Are there any abstentions?
I guess just
Chris,
me.
did you have your hand raised, Chris? Okay.
There was one board member who didn't raise
Well,
their hand.
Probably Zach.
It was Zach.
It wasn't Zach. There was additional board
Maybe Doug, because we can't see him real well. He's kind of hiding down below there. There he is.
Doug, where are you?
It was Bonnie. I didn't get your vote.
I voted.
Bonnie, did you vote? You're still on mute,
I
Bonnie.
think sometimes Bonnie has a hard time taking off mute. Bonnie, I have clicked the ask to unmute button. And you should have a button in the corner.
Okay, I'm back on. I did not vote.
Did you not vote on purpose?
No, personally, I feel we ought to meet these other 2 people.
Well,
Too
okay,
late
you
now.
abstain.
It's okay. I'll just abstain.
Thank you. I'll record that in the minutes.
Okay. I think we're ready to continue the review of the seller provided deliverable data unless there's something else that we need to cover prior to that. And is this your show, Nora?
If you'll let me start yakking here, just to clarify for my own understanding of what's happening, you've now filled the treasurer seat with Zach, and so you have one empty director at large, and you want to put that on the agenda for next week, correct?
Yes.
And if we could have a separate email for that too, that would be nice.
Okay, so I'll send a big email out. Hey, if you're now interested in this position, please step forward. And does it make sense to encourage them to come next week? So it sounds like that in person, put a face to a name really helps.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
I agree.
Orders. So with that said, and I know there are quite a few more people on tonight than there were last week. So is it helpful if I just do a little bit of a recap of what we covered last week? And I won't belabor it because we spent a good chunk of time on it. I think it might be good to do more of like an in-depth recap at the in-person meeting, because I think we get even bigger attendance at those. And those, the intention is for the big in-person meeting to be next week. If you're able to come out, we just, like Janet said, we didn't want to, have anyone overheating. So for the folks who are tuning in and weren't on last week, the board and those who were on took a look at this document, which I'm about to screen share. And if you are on a cell phone, you're not going to miss anything because I'm going to say it all. But for the visual learners in the crowd, I like to do this as well. So we looked at the blue text here is the items from the sellers or from the purchase and sale agreement that breaks down all the obligations that the seller needs to provide to you. And I have populated this Google Drive, which Miranda kindly set up, with all of the materials. So you have a folder for electric bills, bank statements, heating, insurance, every single lease that is, that is in effect in the property, profit and losses, all of that. And I know Google Drive is not the most accessible for everyone. So we had talked about last week that at the next in-person meeting, I'll also bring like a summary document and some printout copies so that people coming out can get their hands on printout copies and don't need to like mess around with Google Drive. This is basically a cover sheet that I put together basically, and we talked it through. So you see a breakdown, the yellow text was next actions, next steps for me to follow up with the broker based on the seller, or excuse me, based on the discussion that the board had last week. And you'll see all of this reflected in the minutes that were just approved and that we'll get around to the whole email list when the agenda goes out on Tuesday. So a lot of moving parts, but you're gonna get this information a number of times. So this is not the only time it's gonna be discussed. I just wanna be really, explicit about that because it's a lot of information. It's like drinking from a fire hose. Fire hydrant. So this breaks
Sorry to jump off here, but on a tangent. You're putting this on a Google Drive. Is this Google Drive secured in any manner? Because I just noticed you said leases.
So it's only available to the board is how it currently stands.
Okay, good. Because I'm just concerned that I believe our personal data is in our leases.
Yes. So
PI is in the leases, and this is a very concerning area for me.
Of course. And through this process, I appreciate you jumping in to say that. I do want to be clear. It's a really good point. This drive, my recommendation, is only accessible by the people who have been elected to the board. And all the stuff that isn't people's personal business is like stuff that we will print and make available. So like the schematics for the septics, the profit and loss of the seller, which just has, his income and expenses, no one's names, no one personal. That's the kind of material that if it sounds like people would like to see that, I can make it available. But through this all, leases are not being made widely available. Anything with recognizable data it's not going to be, and if there's more feedback you have for me about how you want me to handle this, please let me know either directly or through the board or jump in now because I want to balance basically you getting this information, but obviously not violating anyone's privacy. What do people think?
I think it was pretty open when we elected the board that there was certain documentation that we would have to be going through. And that was really part of electing the board, was that these are the people that stood up and volunteered and we deemed them worthy of our trust. So this was always going to be the case.
And don't get me wrong, I do not have a problem with the board having access to this. I just have issues with the public having access to it. That's it.
That is very understandable.
Yeah. And through this all, I also I think I'm always going to be kind of open ears to feedback on this point because I really don't want people, like anytime I send a mass email, for instance, I'm always going to BCC everyone. I'm not assuming that everyone wants all their business shared everywhere. So I really appreciate this point being raised and we'll make sure. So yeah, the board will have the drive and then some of the things that are really infrastructure related or kind of relevant to like the operations end of the property, but not specific to residents. That's what I'm thinking we can make available, if that sounds okay. I'm seeing some nods. So with that said, just gonna put this back up on the screen. So we kind of talked through, you know, I had some follow-ups based on my notes. And just for a sense of like the scale for anyone who wasn't here last week, I just want to communicate, like, the board is having access to review a lot of nitty-gritty information. I've reviewed it all. We're going to continue to review it. Financial profit and losses, the schematics that he has for the property, his tax statements he provided, all of his insurance, all of his bank statements, all of his tax returns. I honestly say that it's the most thorough and quick due diligence deliverables that I've ever gotten from a park owner, having done this many times. So it's made this stage of the process pretty smooth so far. Your attorney reached out to his attorney saying, can we get any back title policies, which is going to help with the title that your attorney is working on for you. And so that's underway. He provided service contracts, so you know who's doing what services in the property. He provided a lot of detail on his septics, which we will get right to the engineer, and his, you know, his personal property, what comes with the sale. A lot of these, you'll note, were follow-ups for me to basically get in writing from the broker. Can we confirm that there's nothing to provide here? So we just, obviously, if there's any violations and they don't send anything, we want it in writing that there's no violation. So we just have that, you know, assurance. The broker sent over the aged, you know, the accounts receivable. So anyone who's behind on rent. And there is almost a zero problem with non-payment in the park. There were about 4 households in all, you know, 270 plus that had a little bit behind on their accounts. No one was over 90 days, which tells us that there's no issue with that. That's really good to see. You want to know that. And they provided utility bills. One thing that we talked about is that the water came in much lower than anticipated. His water expenses is much lower than what I would expect to see based on the fact that CDI works with the park right across the street from you, Brunswick Bay. Their bill is much higher. And so we, you know, one of the things I did was talk to the broker who got written authorization from Kurt that I could go to the water district with to get them to provide me with the actual bills themselves, because what they provided was a summary, but we want to see the bills themselves so we can see your gallons per day usage and see, is it normal? Is it higher than what we would expect? Which would tell us if there's, you know, maybe any leaks that the engineer needs to be aware of coming on site. So just today, the water district sent me a big file, so I still need to review that. They sent it like an hour ago. I still need to review that and then populate it into the drive. So that's basically what we covered last week. Now I'm going to screen share just a couple of the follow-ups because I left with some follow-ups for asking the broker. And again, cut me off at any point if you want me to slow down. So this was a list. The text in black is what I wrote the broker. And I said, you know, as the board and I compare what you sent over, we have a couple of follow-ups, and I just itemized them. And she wrote back in red. I stuck this in the drive for the board. You have this in writing. Some people shared, I think maybe Chris shared, that there's a $20 discount for rents that are paid before the 5th of the month. So she wrote that that the rent amounts that you see on the broker's packet that we've been talking about, that does not factor in any discounts. No discounts show up anywhere. So if the rent says 500 on the broker's marketing packet, the rent is 500. Maybe that person pays 480 in a given month if they pay on time, or excuse me, if they pay a little ahead of time. So that was a question that you had sent me a way to answer last week. She sent over, we were missing a couple years worth of profit and losses. She followed up and sent me 2020, but we're still missing 21 and the first part of 2024. This is the guy's books, right? His profit and loss. Kurt shared, and you've kind of shared this with me since we started this process, that it sounds like Kit was more of the accounting guy and Kurt's more of the operating guy. So the broker backed that up. She said a lot of this is on Kit's computer and the office manager is having a hard time accessing it, but they're trying. So that's one piece of follow-up that that you sent me a way to figure out. So the next stuff, she's confirming there's no budgets, which is not, that's very, very typical. Generally, park owners, especially family operators, do not keep written budgets. It's all kind of in their brain. So we wanted that in writing. She's confirming that all the plans we've already received in the form of the surveys. She confirmed the renewed operating license. So now in the drive, you've got the renewed operating license for the park. We talked a little bit, it came up last week, what was the common fuel? I think Melissa said it's probably the gas tank at the garage. You're right, it is the gas tank at the garage. Yeah. The only personal property, this was another question we had, what personal property comes with the sale? It is the appliances in the stick-built single-family rental home at 6 Kent Street, and the appliances in the barn. So those are the only, it's like a stove, it's like stuff like that. We talked on the phone about the water bills. I talked with her for a while, Monday or Tuesday, and that's when she said, look, the water district's really intense about releasing these. So I'm gonna put an authorization in writing for you, and she did just that, and I sent it to the water district, which we already covered. She's still working, the broker, to get sale data for the last homes that Kurt put in and sold. So we'll have home sale prices there. Someone mentioned a preferred vendors list for like working in unit. Like, oh, here's the go-to electrician.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, Chris, you mentioned that. She said that they don't have that. It's all kind of been on like a case by case, like reference basis. And she provided the vendors who have serviced the whole park, like Doobie, you know, septic, and Dead River for propane. So she said there's no other list in addition to what we've already received.
Does he have an did they do all their electrical themselves? I'm curious, did they have a electrical contractor to do some things, or did it in-house? And same for plumbing, electrical and plumbing.
So I think Kit was a plumber. So they did a lot of the stuff themselves.
I think they did.
Yeah.
And I'm just not sure, and I wanted to confirm that if there was a certain, they do like electrical up to a certain point, and then they had to have an electrical contractor do something else before they brought in CMP to do whatever they need to do. So.
Okay, I'll ask that. I just wrote that down, so I'll field that question to her.
Nora, can I ask a question? You're moving pretty quickly for my note taking. I was hoping I could find this document. Is this in the Google Drive?
Let me double check. I will double check, and if it's not, I'll stick it in there for you.
Okay, thank you.
And Miranda, at any point, just tell me to slow down. You got a tough job, so I want to make sure to.
I can't believe how fast Nora's going. Jeez.
Am I going too fast? I think I go too slow. Okay. So just slowing it down. You also had asked me to get a list of the employees. So they provided, this is the list of the employees that are currently, it's Kurt, Kim Scarponi, Tim Griffith, who's part-time, Kathy Doble, who's part-time, and Stan Rowe, who's part-time. So you're not obligated to hire to maintain any of these, relationships, but you would just ask that I find out who the staff is. So that's the list. And like Miranda just reminded me, it's going to be in Drive, so you can access it there. So I'm going to take a beat there. I know I just jumped around. This all falls within the bucket of data that is being delivered to you as the buyer. So you'll also get it in writing, but I want to stop there. Any questions, any comments, anything I should repeat?
So can I just something? I did find the list of on the documents and services. They do have a list of recommended people for general repairs, electric, heating and plumbing, and mobile home movers. So it is on there.
Oh, nice. Okay, so then you know more than the broker knows, because she said it doesn't exist. Good.
It's on the lynnhaven.com website.
You should have checked the website. That's good.
Yeah. So.
And I think he sent that out in some of his newsletters too.
Yeah.
One question concerning the personal property. I assume that like the piles of dirt and the stuff that's in the barn that he wants to keep, I assume that that is to be gone at the time of closing.
I think he's already emptied the barn because once we signed, I noticed that the Santa Claus that was in the window of the barn was no longer there. So I think he's already been in.
Yeah, he's indicated this is the stuff I'm about to put in the chat. He says this is the only personal property that comes with a transaction. 2 fridges, 2 stoves, dishwasher, a washer and a dryer. So all that stockpiled material, he's got to get it out of there by the time the sale closes. Any other thoughts on this deliverable stuff?
Just need to take some time to look it over thoroughly.
We're going to talk about this like bit by bit every meeting because it's I think if there are takeaways for tonight, what I would say is you have the only outstanding things that we're waiting for are the 2021 profit and loss statement, the first 5 months of 2024 profit and loss. And she's given us the explanation there is really the kind of kit to Kurt and Kathy transition of information. So I don't think it's like a nefarious thing or anything. It seems like she's working on it, the broker. She's also working on providing the home sale data, so what the home sold for that just got put in and sold. And that's really the only stuff that's left. So everything else you really have at this point, which is good, because now we can dig into it. And if I had to tell you the number one thing that sticks out to me so far, it's that the water bill is much lower than what I expected it to be, which is good. I had anticipated it being $150,000 based on the park across the street, but it is looking like it's more like $65,000. That's just what we want to see, right? All the costs that come in less than what I preliminary estimated is just better. It's better for your budget, right? So that's my number one takeaway so far.
Thank you.
Did we confirm whether they own any homes in the park or are in the process of taking over ownership of any homes in the park?
It's on the list, right? She just went up. It wasn't, didn't you go past that? No.
Yeah, I might have taken it down too quick. We did confirm that. They do not own any homes in the park. They are not in the process of taking ownership of any homes in the park.
Okay.
All right, are we ready to move on to our next item?
I am.
Yes.
I am.
So discussion on the resident website and the facts. So I'm assuming you mean when you say resident website, our Blueberry Fields Co-op website, right?
The fantastic new website.
It looks.
Want me to screen share it, or what's useful?
Yeah, I don't think I can, but I think it looks great. Except that picture of me is like really. It's back before the break.
Submit a new one.
Janet, send me a new picture and I'll put it on there. I just scoured the internet to find another photo of you.
Hey, by the way.
Oh, Miranda, I'll send you a different photo of me.
I just want to say thank you to Miranda for that hard work because that site is awesome. It looks really, really cool.
Excellent. Excellent.
You're welcome. Those are personal pictures of the real blueberry fields, not stock images. So
get out. I didn't think this could get better.
Nice.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of blueberry field pictures. I can
Local
contribute.
blueberries.
Maybe we should start a pool of that.
We don't have the photos.
Oh, come on, Nora.
Go to the photos.
So whenever, do you want to talk about when this goes live to the wider community and what's the best way to get the word out?
Sure. I'll share that for now. The site lives in our board folder, but I can change the access. My plan is to add resident, we want to keep it protected, right? So we don't want to make the site public, but what I can do is add all of our current resident emails, and or we could add just the cooperative member emails to be able to view the site. So I guess that's one decision to make, is who has access to this.
I think it should go to residents so that they are encouraged to participate more and find, because they're the ones that have the most questions. You know, residents who are not members are probably the ones who have the most questions. Also, I'd like to suggest we do have, I personally, I don't know if I want it, but all the board members should have a picture on the site so that residents can find us and identify us.
I agree.
And contact
I do
information.
have one question. The Google Drive, is that separate access from the website you've created? Because if we let the whole community have access to the site, we don't want them to all be going through lease information like Robert had mentioned earlier.
So there's the parent folder is the Google Drive folder has just the board members, but
Okay.
then within that folder, the Google site, I can change permissions just for that site, and I can change permissions just for certain documents. So
Okay.
if there are certain documents that are not sensitive, I can change the permissions on those so that anybody with the link can view them.
Okay.
Things like the organizational development timeline, right? Or the acquisition calendar, things that are not sensitive. We could
Can you set up separate folders for those, Miranda? Just so that we don't have, so you don't have to do piece by piece, so that you can just bunk them into a folder that's for everybody.
There's multiple ways to organize it. We could do it with a subfolder. I could even label it, member access, so that we know anything that goes there is viewable. Yep, that would certainly be one way to organize it.
I think it looks great. Your hard work is appreciated, Miranda.
I second that.
Any other discussion around this topic? Do we need to vote on any of these items that we've discussed, Nora, or we can move forward?
I didn't hear us land on a decision about the timeline. When would we like this to be shared?
I guess as soon as we're comfortable with it.
I think as soon as we figure out the security levels, make sure that's locked down, idiot proof, then we'll go ahead and release it.
Yeah, and then what we could do is either send out a mass email, or we could mail out a notice, welcome to your new community website, or some kind of invitation with the link for the address and whatnot.
Do you feel we need another week to go over this and make some decisions?
Yeah, that would probably be a good idea.
Also, if you're going public with the site, you may want to have a review done on the site by somebody that does website security, verify that it is secure.
And who's speaking?
Robert. That's-
Are you one of the tenants, Robert, or a member?
I am a resident here, yes.
Okay, and a
I
member?
signed membership, but I haven't seen anybody to get to pay.
Okay, what's
Not
your
one
last?
of your problem children, but that's only because we haven't seen anybody.
I'll reach out to you then.
You'll be hunting me down?
Yes, I will be.
That's why we need a photograph, an easily identified photograph.
So if that is a ask, I would ask that anybody who'd like their photo included, any board member who'd like their photo included, just send it to me via email.
Okay.
I would also, in terms of contact information, that feels like a maybe individual board decision. I know for myself, I don't have the capacity to respond in a timely way to emails from residents. So I'd rather not have my personal email address on the website. I'd rather have questions channeled to a central person who we know will be checking and able to respond more quickly. So
Could they just go to the Blueberry Fields one then? The
they
Gmail?
could, we would just need to make sure someone is
Monitoring
actively
it.
monitoring it. Yep.
Yeah.
I can probably do that when it comes down to it.
Yeah, and that wouldn't be you having to solve every problem, but you could tag
That's a
people
good
in.
thing because I can't.
Yeah, right.
I just meant monitor it and, answer what I can and yeah.
And just a hint for when you're setting up the site, any emails you put in, you ought to use distribution lists for the domain that we're using. I assume we have a Blueberry Fields domain. That way you can move people in and out of those groups as needed.
It's a Google site, so it's affiliated with a Google account that I set up for us, Blueberry Fields Co-op at gmail.com. So it doesn't have a traditional domain like other websites. But that said, we can edit and update who has access to the site. It's as simple as adding email addresses.
Excuse me. I have a couple of questions. Do we have or need a webmaster?
I don't believe we need one now for sure. I mean, it's not going to be a very complicated website, right, Miranda?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to ask. And the other thing, wouldn't the secretary be fielding any inquiries?
Miranda
Not
is the
necessarily.
secretary.
I think we can define our own job roles as we need to, but it just needs to be somebody's responsibility.
Yeah, I think,
Miranda
the,
does a
I think the
full-
secretary's main role for us anyway is what she's doing right now, the meeting minutes and
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're not looking at these minutes, they are meticulous.
Yeah.
I did.
So everybody should be
delegating
watching
someone
these.
else to do that
I
is
agree.
perfectly fine.
Yeah, it was
She's
way
doing so
way
much
better
work.
than expected. Like, great job to Miranda. I
Yeah.
was really surprised how I couldn't have kept track of stuff the way that she has and issued those notes. That's a fact.
She must know shorthand.
Professional.
I have to move us forward to new business for the sake of time.
Let's go.
We can table this discussion for next week because we have more to talk about.
Can I just add one note on community awareness and stuff? I did speak with the postmaster about putting bulletins on the mailboxes, and that is kind of a no. So I wish I hadn't asked, but I did, and they said no. So we should find an alternative place to put posters in public.
You know the signs that people put up for elections? I wonder if we could have one of those at like the entry points that we could interchange.
What I was
something.
thinking.
I think you can get blank lawn signs at just any
Yeah.
hardware store for
Yeah.
Bentons, and then we can just put, meeting on a poster board and retape it each time.
Like change the date and then whether it's in person or Zoom is essential. Other than
Yeah.
that, yeah.
I think it would be nice eventually to have like a community meeting board. Maybe that would be like sheltered from the rain, but we're not going to be able to install
eventually,
anything
yeah,
until
but-
this is done. Yeah.
just remember you have to put up at, if you're going to do the sign thing, you have to put up at every entrance, to every street.
Also, you might
Probably
want to check
two
with Kurt
on
to
each.
make sure he's okay with it.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, we do.
Okay, Miranda, sorry, Miranda. It's been a long day. Nora, do you want to move forward with the updates on the appraisal and engineering?
I will be mistaken for Miranda any day. Perfectly okay with that. Go for it. Yes, so I will cover some updates. The company that is most likely, so the appraisal and the engineering, the vendors for those two cornerstone reports that you're going to come out of due diligence with. It's customary in commercial lending that the probable first position mortgage lender, so that's the person that's doing the largest amount of the lending, which is most often 70% of the lending, they drive who those vendors are, right? They need to be acceptable to that lending entity, and they need to meet certain just like industry standards, right? Which is like the most common is I'm trying to look for the acronym because I always forget it. Yeah, I can send it. It's the engineering standards. So the appraisal is going to be done by Colliers. I have worked with Colliers many, many times. They really understand manufactured housing. They actually are working on a report for me right now for a different property. So working with them actively elsewhere. And they are going to give a market value for the property. We've been going back and forth about what other valuations they're going to give. Because M&T, which is the most likely candidate for the largest $18 million, more or less, of this loan.
We had enough room.
Sorry, what was that? Did someone say something? They are trying to make use of a particular loan product, which is, it's like a Freddie loan product, a Freddie Mac loan product. It's the same type of loan that these large for-profit companies access, and it gives them a good deal because it's backed by, at the federal level. To my knowledge, it has not been used by a resident group purchasing. So it's interesting. You would be one of the first, right? I'm just hearing some cutting in, cutting out. Am I missing questions? Okay, I'm gonna keep moving forward and then we can talk to questions. So again, what I'm saying, right, is that the first position lender that's doing the bulk of this transaction, as is standard, they order the reports. They're gonna hire Colliers to do the valuation. And they're trying to work out what the scope is for that valuation. And I'm optimistic that it's gonna be ordered tomorrow. I've spent the bulk of today nagging them to get this thing ordered because we are essentially 4 weeks out from the appraisal deadline. It has to be ordered tomorrow. If it is not ordered tomorrow, that's not an option. It must be ordered tomorrow. So that's what I've been working on to get them to order it by tomorrow. So we have 4 weeks really to get this thing back. And I feel optimistic about that. The engineering, I think we have a little bit more flexibility, but I still want to get this thing ordered, ideally tomorrow in one go, and if not tomorrow, early next week. The scope of services is going to look like this. I'm just going to screen share, and this will go in the drive and it'll go to the board. I just got it today. So they're going to do, this is a really standard property condition report, and the firm is Building Evaluation Services and Technology, or BEST. And BEST has done, property conditions reports for 200 manufactured housing communities. You're going to meet them. You're going to have a very extensive relationship, having them vet the property. So this is just giving you a written scope. M&T, the lender, like the probable lender, has worked with them before. They're going to provide basically the property conditions report, which has a desk component of it, like them doing research from afar, and it'll have all the in-person inspections of the property. And they're going to do costing, basically, of all the likely repairs. That's the really important part of this, that has come up, at all those in-person meetings when you're getting started. We need a summary of the recommended repairs and replacement cost estimates, identified known problematic building materials, if any exist. We need estimation of costs for immediate and for long-term. So like a 10-year capital improvement plan is what we call it. So if you say they come and they say, 10 systems are in hydraulic failures, 10 septic systems, that's an immediate replacement or repair that you have to do. They're going to say right out the gate, what is that going to cost you? They might come and say, look, these systems are 60 years old. We know they're going to fail most likely 2 every year. You should just factor in having to do replacement on 2 or repair on 2 a year. So we're going to, stagger that out over 10 years.
Excuse me, Nora,
Uh-huh.
A question. Last week, we were talking about, you were showing some of the documents that Kurt had forwarded to you, plumbing underground, plumbing and documentation, handmade drawings with dimensions on them. And you, I believe, indicated that Kurt's that they keep up. When something goes wrong, they fix it right then. Everything, whatever goes on, it's the way they've always done it. And if there's anything wrong now, they will fix it before they sell it. Did I misunderstand?
So this is a good point, Chris. There's nothing in their contract that you have with them right now that requires them to fix anything. It is an as is, where is transaction. The reason being, that's what the third party is. The third party says we're as is, where is. So in order to put in a substantially equivalent offer, you had to say we're as is, where is. That's how these, he has indicated, I believe to you, Janet, that if there are problems, he will entertain fixing them. But that's so far word of mouth. We don't.
And I suspect he's not talking about like repairing sewer systems and things like that, that kind of money.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's exactly the impression I got.
Oh, no, I don't think he means that at all. He's not going to spend all that kind of money. He's worried about an extra $50,000. I mean, why? You don't think he's going to spend $300,000 to fix something for us? I don't think so.
His exact words, if they find a system that has failed, I will fix it.
I know, but I hope you're right. I hope you're both right.
So what I would say for this stage of it, we're still operating in hypothetical, right? So what I would say, and what I do with every group, is we get your vendors on site, because I'm just going to say every park owner has told me as soon as something comes up, I fix it. If I had $1 for every time someone has told me that, I don't know, like I would have a lot of money. But maybe he's right. You know, we hope for the place to be in good shape. Let's bring your people on site, get a sense of cost, and then go to him and say, hey, you want to stay true to your word? You know, you have a couple in failure. What are you going to do for us? You know, but until we have that, we're still operating kind of in hypotheticals. But we will get to that point, Chris, and you'll get to that point with leverage in hand, with an actual sense of what's failed. And all that stuff we talked about last week, his big spreadsheet that shows every time he pumped the system since 1996, most unbelievable spreadsheet I've ever seen. You better believe that the engineer is going to get that, you know, because they need to see what the record keeping is, what the repairs have been, that type of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think it's a big deal. If he had to replace a pipe here, it sounds like it would be minor. It's a piece here and a piece here. It's not the same as replacing a whole system. That would be something else, and that's what I'm really curious to hear from these engineers, this inspection. If they're going to condemn some entire system, that whole tank and that, all that piping is all no good. I want to know that right away.
Yep.
And regardless, we need to know this before we move, before we close out, because anything we find out after we own it, we own it.
Yeah,
that's right.
So, you know, we need to know all of it. It doesn't matter whether he's going to fix it or not. We need to know about it first.
Yeah. I think the engineers should have been here a week ago, in my opinion.
Yeah, and this is the frustrating thing, where we're working with very large banks and they are wicked bureaucratic. And I'll tell you, I've been zinging emails saying, I'm annoying. I will, you know, trust, I'm like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? We need to get, so they are basically, and the reason we're going with them is because if they are able to successfully access this loan product, I believe we've got an indication that the interest rate is just far and above what other lenders are able to do. And it all comes down to the interest that you're going to pay, right? So that's why, you know, but I agree with you, Chris. By this time next week, my hope is that I can tell you, look, Best has been retained. They're going to be on site X date. We can really get going, because you're right. I mean, we're not operating with all the time in the world here.
And I just want to slide in one little thing. It's an old saying that I heard 1,000 times in my construction career with architects and contractors and engineers. It's easier to ask forgiveness than to ask permission. I would recommend everyone think twice before we go to the post office again to ask their permission for something. I don't believe we should be asking anyone's permission unless it's a big deal and it's the town of Brunswick. Other than that, don't ask people to sit around making decisions and coming up with rules. Just don't stir them up, I think.
Well, I was
I know, I
It
agree.
was not my suggestion to ask permission. That was suggested from elsewhere.
I suggested that because it's USPS property, and typically they don't go for that.
But stuff's been bid on those post box for years. I've lost dog, this, that. Never
Yep.
heard anyone say anything. I haven't seen the postmaster down here reading us the riot act or anything. Don't bother them. That's my suggestion. Leave them alone.
So just to wrap up, we could, if as soon as we start talking about USPS, we're gonna be here for 3 more hours in my experience. Yes, long story short, the appraisal I expect to be ordered tomorrow, and the engineering, this company is I expect to be ordered at the same time or beginning of next week, so that the infrastructure surveys, they're out the door. So you should expect to start seeing them in your mail. Really, really encourage you to fill them out and bring them to a board member. Actually, excuse me, bring them to the
Chris.
recycling bin outside of Chris's house.
That's right.
Don't worry for
Yeah,
that.
we got ours today in the mail.
Oh,
I
awesome.
got mine. Oh, I got mine today in the mail, so I went right out and put the signs on it. So I have a gray.
Yeah, they're in. I mean, most
recycling
a
bin,
lot of people.
and I've taped paper to the top and the side. I had it out by my steps, but when it started raining, I tucked it back under my porch. When it stopped raining, I'll put it back out again.
And the only other thing is that the income surveys are also, I'm staring at all the envelopes I need to stuff after this meeting. They are also going to be out. It's just a lot of papers in little, it just takes a while. But I would really repeat every meeting that the income surveys are an extremely important part of this. The lenders want to use that data to try and get after lower cost. The grants we already know, we're already banking on some of these grants, but we're hoping that we can get a better interest rate if we can show that the incomes, you know, just an aggregate, a picture of the whole property, no one individually, and they're one page, and you don't need to provide any supplemental paperwork. So it should be a quick thing. And I just want to underscore every meeting that it's such an important piece of the puzzle here to try and get the best deal possible. Any questions, you can contact me directly. We could talk privately. I would not want anyone to contact the board with this part of the puzzle because I don't want to stick the board in this income collection. You know, it's just good to keep them separate. So that's the other thing I wanted to mention.
Okay, our next item is a discussion around beginning our search for a property management company.
So this one, I'm just going to propose to the board. Do you want to table this for next week? Because I know you have an executive session on the agenda, and I know you want to do open forum because you have a lot of members on the line. And this one we can cover next week. Timing wise, that's okay. So if you want to just hold off, yeah.
Motion to
does
table for next week.
Second.
Do we need a motion? I don't think so.
No?
Anyway,
Okay.
so does anyone have any questions for our open forum before we go into executive session? We've got just a couple of minutes. I'm looking for raised hands. I don't see anything.
So you're going to tell people that they can stay on the line for when we open it back up?
No, we're going to adjourn
Oh,
directly.
okay.
Yeah, but the executive session is our last
Okay.
item on the agenda. Okay, I guess we don't have any questions. Feel free to bring them forward next week if you have questions. And at this point, we will jump into executive session.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, everyone.